talked about it yesterday, just that chip on your shoulder. Everyone talking about a neutral AFC championship game, not even thinking about you guys. How much did that motivate you coming into this?
You better send those refunds.
I'm from the city where they gotta play us. Fuck a coin flip, it's time to pay up. Don't cross the middle, 21 in the cut. We ain't hiding from nobody, run and tell them it's up. I'm from the city where they gotta play us. Fuck a coin flip, it's time to pay up. Don't cross the middle, 21 in the cut. We ain't hiding from nobody, run and tell them it's up. Back-to-back champs, kings of the north with it. Thinking they can hang with us, still ain't jumped out the porch with it. Long bomb to chase every Sunday, watch him go and get it. Double up on him, then we gon' double down on T. Higgins. Then throw Boyd in the mix, now you really iffy. Every Sunday showing boys how to really gritty. They try to shuffle up the game on us, but they ain't icky. Flip the coin, kick the toe Roger to go and get it. Never know what's gonna happen when Joe drop back. He gets shiesty in the pocket, I get shiesty on the track. Nobody on the team all pro, that's all cap. Most all around team in the NFL, that's all fact. Ain't came across nobody yet that seem like they can hang with us. They said we couldn't be Buffalo, but see how we call they bluff. Underdogs every week, they keep on trying to label us. Put your money on us, even if Vegas don't favor us. No matter what, we really came up, now it's hard to fail. I dare you come across that middle, Von gon' ring your bell. I know we under they skin, them boys built frail. Eli Apple out there chirping like a next tail. You don't want Salmon Trey to come off them ends. Rita clogging up the middle like a big body Benz. Right behind them Logan and Pratt, the turnover twins. Jesse Bates in the backfield just to clean up the loose ends. We just drafted Cam and drafted Hill. Instant gratification every time that they on the field. We can't go back to what we was, cause that's the loser way. It's been hard.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Bengals and Brews. I am I guess you could say I'm the host tonight. Dale, you want to take over on that?
You're the hostess with the mostest, Derek.
You already fucked it up.
I thought you had this.
I mean, I thought I had it, but it's been a minute. We got Pork Chop Joe and Blackout Dale with us tonight, along with a very special guest of ours. You might know him from, I'll just say Twitter, but he works with, I'm blacking out again. Dale, I think I'm
right,
blacked
just
out.
stop talking, Derek.
First
Welcome to
logistics.
Sitdown.
Right.
Mr. Evan McPhillips.
Evan McPhillips, everybody.
Yeah,
right?
It's State of the Jungle and everything else, but you can just
State
bring
of
him
the
on and
Jungle.
let
I had
him
it right
tell
here. I
Just
had
let
it right
him
here.
say
No,
it.
actually, you didn't.
You didn't have it at all.
You didn't have it.
Lord.
Oh,
Evan, we
man.
understand if
Hey.
you just want to drop. We can't hear you, bud.
Uh-oh.
Oh, that's Derek's fault.
That is
That's all
Derek's
my
fault.
Damn it, Derek. Damn it, Derek. Hashtag damn it, Derek.
I
Yeah.
just need to start drinking. Let you guys take over. I'll just sit here and drink.
Yeah, Evan, we can't hear you, brother. May have to drop out and drop back in real quick.
It was Derek's fault, though, Evan. Don't blame yourself.
Yeah.
I'm sure he hit a button or something. How you guys
Yeah.
doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man.
Yeah.
Good day, stranger, Chris, Ken.
I'm a lot
Crab.
more coherent than
My
I was
son.
last Friday.
Anthony, Ken. Derek will need a timeout, David.
Yeah. I'll remove me from the number one spot.
I'm
Yeah.
number one.
It's too much
You're
pressure.
number one.
It's too much
Am I in the
pressure.
number one spot?
Yep,
And
John, now
and
you're up.
Holy shit. Does this come with a pay raise?
Yep. 100%.
I get, yeah, I double my salary.
No, now you have to start doing all the clips and
Oh.
everything as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to Bengals and Brews. I'm your host, Pork Chop, a.k.a. Chris Mertens. Yeah, registered nurse, motherfucker, and doing a podcast with my best buddies here, my co-host, Dale Altman, a.k.a. Blackout Dale today, Houday Joe, and my buddy, Orange Arrow, Derek. Bengals and Brews, we got a special guest tonight. He's not popped on yet because he popped on before, but he had to pop back off because his popping wasn't going right. Evan McPhillips is going to be here. You can find him on Twitter. He works with Malik Wright doing the Wright Report. Is it the Wright Report?
State of the
First
jungle.
State of the Jungle.
State of the Jungle for First Star
First
Logistics.
Star Logistics.
And he is a smart-ass motherfucker, a football genius. Going to answer all of our questions tonight as soon as he comes up. First, you got to be a computer genius and figure out how to get back on the show. As soon as he does, boom. Meantime, Derek, we haven't talked to you today, so what are your thoughts on what's going on with the training camp today? The news that came out today, people staying on the sidelines, not playing, Joe Burrow, everything. Go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, I'm just going to cut the first 3 minutes of this show in the podcast form so nobody hears my absolute like train wreck at the beginning. But no, I don't disagree with them, man. You gotta do what's best for you. So if they want to make business decisions right now, more power to them.
I think
they're going to get paid. So it's just a matter of when.
I'm telling you, after going out and getting dinner for my wife, it was so fucking hot. I don't blame them for staying on sideline. They've been out there. This is their third day in bacon ass heat. What do you say, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's one day. Like, you know, I don't make much of it. It's just one day. Obviously, we knew Burrow wasn't going to be out there. He's not going to be on the practice field for a while. T and Logan, it's like, I'm guessing those deals are very imminent. That's the only thing it tells me. I don't think anything bad of it. And if it is like, hey, we're finalizing things, we're talking to your agent, things are closing in, I would not want to do anything to jeopardize that as well, especially if it's really close. So, you know, I know there was some stuff out there where, you know, Kelsey
Wrong,
Conway
David. You're thinking of Anthony. Anthony is his son, not Antoine.
Right.
You're getting your blacks mixed up, David.
Right. There you go.
God damn.
Oh goodness. Let's
David.
try to bring Evan on, see if he's got his mic.
Fellas, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Sound
Oh
beautiful.
Lord, I saw you guys with the headsets and said, you know
That's
what,
right.
that's going to be the fix. And
This is
sure
a
enough,
headset
you know,
show, Evan. You didn't
took
get the
care of it.
memo?
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
to join in on the fun, I guess. So
All
yeah,
right.
no, I'm here. I'm ready. I'm happy to be on here. Appreciate you guys having me on. Glad to see that you guys have already gotten started. Let's go ahead and talk some Bengals, man.
Let's do it.
Yep.
Oh yeah. Dale, did you want to kick off first question?
Oh, I'm just here. I'm blacked out. No, so we had Trey's extension. We'll start there.
Right.
We talked about it a little earlier, but the savings it potentially provides and the added, I think it's good all around. It helps them potentially this year. It also helps Trey have some security and another year on his deal, which is all good. What are your thoughts just on the Hendrickson deal? And do you think anyone is next besides Burrow again? On the second year of that?
I think that this is a good signal that we've talked previously, I think, on this show, as well as our own Bengals show, State of the Jungle, about how we've seen the Bengals kind of take different approaches to things than they've standardly done, right? Whether that's how you've kind of handled either player acquisition and free agency, whether that's your strategy for culture approaching, for how you approach the game. We've seen changes in their aggressiveness, financially speaking, toward free agents. Yep. We've seen them being willing to take more big swings, have more of a progressive approach. And this was kind of the next step for them, was managing contracts differently. And we saw that with the Joe Mixon, I don't want to call it a restructure, but reworking of his contract. And then you see it here with Trey Hendrickson, with them like being willing to move money around, being willing to tack on another year into a plus 30-year-old season for a player to try and get immediate cap relief. And that is something that I think follows into your second question, which was, I think it tees up more space for the immediate bonus money impact, cap impact that you might get from a T. Higgins extension. From
I see what you did there with the tees up.
A little bit, yeah,
right?
yeah. But yeah, so I think it sets up well. I think it gives just a little bit more relief for that. And we talked on our own show a little bit about this last week too, with can they keep everybody? And the answer is just a resounding yes, right? And this is where that starts, with front loading that T contract, getting that cap hit now in these early years when any would-be extension for Joe or Jahmyr would not really start kicking in with real money for another 2 years. So we know the Bengals like to front load those first year or two. That would be par for the course for them and fit well with their projected timeline for everything. So I think it really means that they are very intentionally making moves to try and keep T. Higgins, probably likely trying to extend Logan Wilson. They see these players that they have to take care of that are core pieces for what they want to do going forward. And I think they're taking steps to retain those players.
And do any of you guys have the cap savings that we did from the Trey move?
I think
I
it's
believe it
4
was a
to
little over
5.
4.
Right.
Yeah.
4.3 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, it's like, okay, that's an extension's definitely coming, but it didn't necessarily tell me that it's not just Joe. I mean, he's gonna get a huge ass deal. Does this tell you specifically about extensions outside of Joe, or like
Well,
that's my whole thing? I'm like,
no,
this
I
could just be
get
gimmick
that.
room for
Yeah,
Joe's.
that's there's definitely credence to that line of thought. I would also say that you're going to have a lot more flexibility with Joe because of the length of the contract, being 5 years tacked on to what's already, I believe, 2 years left anyways. And you're that kind of immediate input. You can spread that out, right? You can spread up to 5 years worth, prorate that. So I think the way that you massage that a little bit, and they probably put a lot more of the roster bonus stuff in there for him to try and avoid putting a bunch of money in escrow and dealing with that whole fiasco. For that reason, and for what I talked about with kind of paying people up front and front loading a lot of their contracts, generally speaking, and how it lines up so perfectly with when the money for Joe Burrow would really start hitting. I think that it shows intent. I think there's credence, like you said. This is creating cap room for the sake of creating cap room because we have so many players to extend.
Right.
I think they still want to get T. I think that T. Higgins' contract falls in that kind of Terry McLaurin range, that $25 million a year range. Like not the Tyreek Hill. You haven't been the number one receiver as much as you might think you can be. You get paid for what you do, right? And whether David Mogetta believes that and, is pushing for that, that's another conversation altogether. But if you're talking about at that Terry McLaurin number, like I think there's complete reason to believe that this kind of stuff would help out T. Higgins a lot, and help to work that in because every bit helps. You add that in, and it's not just the Trey Hendrickson, it's also reworking Joe Mixon's deal. It's going to be probably a surprising cut or two, maybe, come camp time with all the depth they have at key positions in wide receiver and defensive line and in the secondary at safety and corner. So there's going to be maybe some surprises here and there.
For sure. And I popped that comment up from Ken there. I don't know if you've heard any names yet, but Zach seems to think we'll bring somebody in, which it makes sense to bring somebody in. You've only got 2 other quarterbacks, even for late preseason, other snaps in camp. Have you heard any names or who's somebody you think we might bring into camp? And is it going to be Derek's boyfriend that was in camp last year?
Drew Plitt, baby.
Drew Plitt.
I'm sorry, Drew. That's funny. No, I don't know if, man, you're talking about camp bodies at this point. I mean, you start getting down into the guys that have kind of been around. You're probably looking, I don't know if you're looking really to develop anybody. So you're probably just going to get one of those veterans. I mean,
well, we had people tossing out earlier Teddy Bridgewater, and I'm like, no, it's going to be more of a
he's not coming in for being
right. I mean, yeah, no, I mean, maybe like a guy like a Chase Daniel, someone who's just been around the league, kicked around, still out there, is in his late 30s. If he still wants to be on a team at this point, I mean, that's mainly your kind of like veteran guy outside of, the Matt Ryans and Carson Wentz's and Joe Flacco's.
Well, I think
I
think that's their Trevor Siemian. I think it'll be a young guy who's, either undrafted or just somebody like that.
Right. Because, I mean, when you look out there, what's kind of out there right now, I mean, you're Bryce Perkins, EJ Perry, Jake Luton, Chase, and, none of these guys are really, I think you're right that, this is maybe the opportunity to kind of just take a camp dart throw at somebody and say, hey, maybe we end up with not maybe Bryce, oh gosh, I'm blanking so hard on the 49ers quarterback, Brock Purdy. There we go. Jeez, I wanted to say Bryce Petty. Oh, that's a different flame out from college, but no, you never know who looks halfway decent, and then you can, either flip it onto another team or, he gets picked up by another team and gets a chance somewhere. But I definitely think that they have their guy in Trevor. And I think I've talked about it a little bit when they signed Trevor originally, that having that backup quarterback for a team that expects to contend for not just the playoffs, but the number 1 seed is very important because once you get that gap between the teams that are right behind you at 1 and 2, which are likely going to be Kansas City, Buffalo, you play Buffalo. you're playing a lot of these teams that might be nipping at your heels between the guys in the AFC North, and some of the people out there in the AFC East are going to be eating up on each other. So you have to take advantage of every game you get. So if Joe Burrow happens to tweak his ankle, when he creates a play and just someone comes down wrong on his ankle, or he jams his thumb and can't quite play for a week or two and really grip the ball well, then you don't have to rush him back anymore for fear of what might happen if you have to start Brandon Allen for an entire game. I think Trevor Siemian can more than capably handle himself, and you're looking for that backup quarterback to be able to win half of your games outright. So if Joe Burrow's out 4 weeks, you want him to at least be able to win 2, because you don't want to just keep dropping every single game, because that just hurts so much when you're talking about the buys. You're talking about being that number 1 home seed. I know everybody wants to have more playoff games in Cincinnati. I mean, that's the way to do it, is secure that number 1 seed, and the home field advantage in the jungle would be crazy. So I think Trevor Siemian was a very underrated move for, if he's called upon, winning half of those games or more is going to be a huge accomplishment, and it's definitely going to matter come the end of the season.
Yeah, and Jake Browning's the other guy they have in camp, and I don't know if you guys seen, he let it slip, which we all kind of figured. The reason they paid him and put him on the active roster is there was a team that wanted him at the end of the season. He's like, I don't know if I was supposed to say that. But he said
those are always
already out there.
When someone's talking and they're like, wait a second, I don't know.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. Wink, wink, wink.
Yeah, that was today. So, I mean, they obviously wanted to keep him around. That's why they did that and paid him a little more money.
Yeah, I was going to ask your thoughts on him, actually. He looked pretty good today. I know they're planning on swapping back and forth with ones, but what's your thoughts on Jake?
I want to be respectful, because I sat next, when I worked at PFF, I had the great pleasure of working with Zach Robinson, who's now the pass game coordinator over for the LA Rams. And when I tell you that this man could sit back in his desk chair and I'm 8 feet away, and he could just wrist flick a Nerf ball so hard that it would snap into my hands, I'm not kidding. It definitely kind of paints a picture. So I want to give credit where credit due, that Browning, to make it to the NFL level, is an excellent talent.
Anybody there, yeah.
At the same time, when you're kind of that third string quarterback guy bouncing around, that practice squad guy, you're making good money. You got a pretty good gig. But I don't anticipate any genuine competition. I think they signed Trevor Siemian with that in mind. And I know we're all super excited because football is back in a sense. But at the same time, much like we need to tell Brown's Twitter seemingly every day, relax, everybody's in shorts and running on air. Right. So let's put some pads on, and then we can start taking away some real projections. Right now, the goal is everybody gets on the field and off the field healthy, because this is when you see this ramp up period, right? And this is kind of, I'm rambling a little bit about CBA stuff here, where they kind of shorten the preseason part of it. And this is what you see a little bit of when guys come back in the hottest months of the year, start getting put in drills that are too intense for you've taken months off. And though you've been training, you haven't been training in the way you do for a football game and through this hot sun and everything. So you see a lot of those soft tissue injuries, calves, hamstrings, all that stuff, groin, and that can just kind of linger into the season, especially groin and hamstring injuries. So this ramp up period is really important. So just to see people get on the field, get off the field, that's the main goal right now until we start wrapping up into camp, I think.
Yeah, and what you said about all these guys can make throws in shorts. I remember going to camp last year, and we had 4 quarterbacks at the time. And I was lucky that they did the individual quarterback drills really close to the crowd. And I was just watching all these guys. And I mean, if you didn't see the numbers, they all looked identical. I mean, they are all throwing just
crispy, good motions.
And I'm just like, it makes you just appreciate kind of what you were saying. It's just like how good you have to be to even make it on the practice squad of an NFL roster. These guys are so talented, but the difference between a Jake Browning and a Joe Burrow is everything between the ears. It's
Oh,
the
yeah.
decision making.
Right.
Yeah.
It's, the under pressure. It's so mental with these guys, especially at the quarterback position. So I thought that
Yeah,
was really
no, that's a good
interesting.
point, man, because there's so many quarterbacks that have it physically, right?
Yep.
They've been doing this all their life. They've been going to 7-on-7s. They've been working with throwing coaches since they were 10 and 12 years old. But again, it's when the ball goes live, when the pre-snap and post-snap picture don't match. Can you, in that 2.5 seconds, diagnose, decide, and execute? And it's like 1 in 1,000 people even have the ability to react fast enough to maybe hit a baseball. It's much like that. But like you said, when you put that guy around a bunch of average Joes, like we brought Zach out for a flag football game one time as a ringer for our quarterback.
But
My
that was
buddy
fun.
Cole Brown, who's actually working over with Auburn now. Shout out to Cole. He played wide receiver at Chattanooga, so he's running verticals down the sideline, and Zach's just dropping back, and he's got beautiful Russell Wilson
Right.
rainbow balls, and guys are looking around like, "Hey, got goddamn Drew Brees over here! What the hell?" Like, so putting that next to everybody, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like a couple years ago when I guess it was Brian Scalabrine got pissed that everybody was talking crap about how bad he is, and then he beat up on like 4 or 5 people who said they could beat him, and
Right.
he was like, I'm closer to LeBron than you are to me. And it's just kind of one of those moments that like reminds you, like you said, man, just to make it there, to even be in a camp, like you are the top like 0.5% of athletes out there, man. So
Yeah.
just don't want to. I feel bad when we say people are bad or they're not. Like you guys are still the top like 1%, 0.5% of athletes.
They're still incredible and way better.
Comparatively, yeah. It's just unfortunate that the guy we have to compare you to is Joe Burrow.
Right.
Yeah, and Robert Obright has a question, wanting to know like how comfortable would you be, say, giving Joe 3 weeks and then saying, okay, get back out here, or do you think he should definitely sit out the rest of camp, or what's your thoughts on that?
I don't think he should sit out the rest of camp, but I think you definitely put him on bubble wrap until. I mean, man, if you think about it, the first game isn't until September 10th. I mean,
Right.
we're talking. You've got over 5 weeks now to recover from what I guess people are projecting is just a several week injury. So anywhere between 2 to 4. I say 4 just to
Boom.
lean.
That's what
it's
I
the
say.
preseason. There you go. Right. So you say ideally 3. Give him the extra week. It's the preseason. No need to rush him back. But he also has talked about how important those camp reps are for him to feel loose, for him to feel that rhythm of the game. So that's definitely an important aspect for him, and you want him to feel comfortable. You kind of saw it in the first couple games last year where he had some practice, had the appendectomy, and then kind of, practiced a little bit and rolled right into the season. And he definitely looked a little off. He definitely looked a little rusty. Yep. And so if you give him 4 weeks and then bring him back for give him 2 weeks of practicing, keep him out of the last preseason game for sure. And then just let him kind of get his rhythm back. I think that's kind of like an ideal timeline. It's about 4 weeks off, maybe a week and a half to 2 weeks, just kind of prep a little bit. And maybe if he recovers in 3, knowing how crazy he is about training, and, maybe he's that same way about rehab. And we know all these guys seem to grow back their ailments faster than we can recover from bending over the wrong way backwards,
Yeah.
My jammed thumb is still bothering me a week and a half later, and Adrian Peterson's like, in that time I recovered from my ACL,
Right.
800 yards. Like, what have you done?
That's their metahuman DNA is what that
right is. So yeah, maybe it takes 3 weeks. He gets 2 to 3 weeks to get right in camp, and man, I think we're playing with fire at that point, because it's still, Zach Taylor said it himself, this is the most he's gotten to work in July. So
right.
I mean, it's not saying much, but it still is factual.
Yeah, I think it's the 3-week recovery, and I think the extra week are just for precaution till it gets, like the comment said before, 110%.
Right.
I don't think it's gonna affect our season at all.
No, I don't think so, man. I think you got plenty of time. Fortunately, avoided the serious injury. So between all that, I think that they're going to be in a good spot. I think there was a lot of understandable concern, but yeah, no, I think he's going to be just fine.
This injury is different than last year. Last year, it was a surgical thing. It was an appendectomy. He lost a lot of weight because it was, that affects your whole body. So I think
you
basically
can still be working out the upper
restriction.
body. You can still be eating right.
So he lost weight. He couldn't work out. This injury here, he can still throw. He can still lift. He can still stand. He can take a walk. So,
Right.
I mean, he's just not
Yeah,
going
I
to be
think-
able to out there putting pressure on it and pushing off of it or running or stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Dr. Krimchak said was,
Right.
you know, he can still do basically everything except for the live reps and stuff like
Right.
that. You know, he can still do all the throws. He just can't move because he'll have that boot on. He won't be able to move like he normally can.
It's our best case scenario after seeing him go down yesterday. I mean, I guess our best case scenario would have been he would have had a cramp and got a bag of fluids and been fine.
Yeah.
But this is next best.
Yeah, he did say as far as strains go, it was a grade 1,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess, you know, as opposed to a grade 3, which is like
You can never remember what way that goes, whether it's the DEFCON
Yeah.
way and 1 is the worst, or like 3
Grade
is the
3 is
worst.
surgery.
Yeah. Grade
You
1
guys-
is the best.
Grade 3, you're getting surgery. Grade 1, 2 to 4 weeks.
Right.
Yeah. So I actually had a question for you, Evan.
Yeah.
I was listening to Locked On a couple of days ago. It's hard.
Great show.
Every time I'm listening to these guys, they kind of all blur into I forget what day I listened to what, but Jake was talking about Burrow's contract or getting a signing bonus or a roster bonus in like 5 or so days. Do you think that'll affect or possibly affect the contract and when he signs it?
I heard him talk about that, and I think that is a really interesting point. It especially is interesting if you believe that there's intent to kind of announce the T. Higgins, Joe Burrow thing at the same time, and we just had the Mixon reworking is what I'm going to call it, because I don't want to call it a restructure. So we had the reworking of Mixon's contract just a week ago, and now we had Trey Hendrickson's reworking kind of out of nowhere. Because people were talking, even Jake himself, I think, mentioned that, you know, and I was talking that, hey, you know, Trey's going to be 30 years old in 2 years. And like, you got Miles Murphy and you got Joseph Osai. So just something to keep an eye on. And again, really encouraging to see the Bengals willing to make unique cap moves. But I definitely think that it adds incentive to get that Joe Burrow deal done. At the same time, the Bengals are like such creatures of habit, and they don't rush anything. And a lot of these contracts come out, you know, toward the actual training camp and not the mini camp or the OTAs.
Sorry, I have Ohio State breaking news, but it does relate to the Bengals. And
lay it on us.
Chris Henry Jr. commits to Ohio State.
Wow.
There you go.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool, man. God bless that article they had in the Athletic the other day.
And he's
about,
out
about him and Pack. Drop the news and walk away.
Boom.
But just going back to Joe Burrow, yeah, no, I think the contract with him and T comes sometime in August. I think there's definitely financial incentive, like you talked about, to get the deal done where you can redistribute money. But I also think that they've done that in other ways to where they don't necessarily feel pressured. It's definitely an added bonus. But you know, it kind of feels like if you're buying a car and they're like, oh, we'll knock $500 off if you do this work yourself. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it would take me like 2 hours and it's $500 and that feels like a fair deal, but I'm not like super pressed about it at the same time.
Yeah.
You know? So it feels like it's nice. It would save me a little bit of money, but at the same time, we're more worried about, we want you to feel comfortable. We want to feel comfortable and make sure everything is kind of hit. So I think there's financial incentive for that, but I would be surprised. And I think the Bengals would really be showing like, hey, we're operating differently if they signed a contract before July was over for an extension like that.
Yeah.
Here, Greg wants me to ask this question. He's even texted me personally because we got a bet on it. We got a bet on this. I owe Greg. So Ted Karras said the best sandwich he's ever eaten in the whole United States is a chopped cheese sandwich from Daylily out on the east end of town. So Greg and I made a bet, and I said, I just betted whatever Greg didn't want because in the end, I just want a chopped cheese sandwich, whether I got to buy one for both of us or he does. But will Burrow's deal be done by August 7th at 4:23 p.m. exactly?
Man, that's a tough one. The down to the minute too. Oh man, what if I said it was like 4:24? Is that still gonna work?
If it's done before that, I owe Greg the sandwich, and if it's done after that, he owes me. Either way, chopped cheese.
Tell you what, I'm gonna say after, and the reason I'm saying after is because I'm looking
Save your money, Greg.
Other deals like AJ Green getting done about September 11th, and like I said, there's not outside of that roster bonus. You'd like to be able to spread things out a little bit more, but there's not necessarily immediate pressure to get this done in the next week or two. If this gets done, if the start of the season is September 10th, if you're walking into September 5th with a deal, you're not any worse off than if you do it in August 15th or August 10th, right?
Maybe they're reworking deals. We just saw Trey Hendrickson. Nobody thought that was going to happen. Maybe they're doing the same thing to DJ Reader, which is also something somebody asked earlier. If it's possible.
Very interested about the DJ Reader situation. Yeah. That's very interesting because he's definitely been such a heart and soul for that defense in the middle and allows you to do crazy stuff with the edges and dropping in and out of coverage because he can just eat up so much space in the middle. And I know there's concern with a lot of these guys, Dexter Lawrence, Quinnen Williams, Deron Payne, all getting big defensive tackle contracts, right? Especially guys like Dexter Lawrence that are more of that nose tackle kind of mold, right? At the same time, those guys have significant pass rush upside.
Yes.
I believe Dexter Lawrence was first in terms of pressure rate among all defensive tackles last season, had an incredible season, deserves every bit of that money for his contract. That's not DJ Reader's mold. He's much more of the nose tackle with pass rush upside. You get a pass rush play every 10 rushes and you're like, oh, okay, he had a good low pressure there, right? So with him being that guy who doesn't, you're built on strength, you're built on leverage and your size. Those aren't traits that fade, right? That's not like explosiveness or bendiness that you get at edge that really slow you down, or, corner wide receiver that you lose your juice a little bit. So I think he can have utility. I wonder if after kind of toiling around with the Texans for a few years, getting his big payday and then being part of this Cincinnati culture, if he would not be interested in coming back on a 2 or 3 year deal, not for the $12 or $15 million that maybe some would expect for a good defensive tackle and seeing all these contracts, but maybe for a $5-8 million number. And suddenly it's a lot more palatable. And just looking behind him too, I don't know what you'd feel comfortable replacing him with.
Right.
So versus the other positions like Trey Hendrickson, again, I would have been like, hey, Trey's been exceptional. What a value. At the same time, you have Joseph Osai, you have Sam Hubbard, you have Miles Murphy all under contract for the next 5 years, right? But I think that's going to be an interesting situation to monitor, whether DJ wants to go get another payday, which he absolutely would deserve with some young team like a Falcons or Bears from this offseason that needs veteran leadership and a quality, capable player. I really hope he stays, man, because I covered the Texans when he was for Pro Football Focus when he was in a rotational role. And we'd go and we'd write our Sunday standouts piece and kind of send it off to all the media and beat writers. And Texans Cap is a great follow on Twitter if you guys ever talk to him. But I remember going back and forth with him about how crazy DJ Reader was and just like a backup nose tackle role, getting 400 or 500 snaps. But JJ Watt was there, and Christian, it wasn't Christian Wilkins. It was Christian something or other. I can't remember, from 4 or 5. It was, time moves too quickly. I said 4 or 5 years ago. That's probably more like 7 or 8 now.
Right.
Christian Covington, I think, might have been his name. But yeah, and there was just so much potential with what he did, and to see him get that massive contract from the Bengals, that was the first drop in the bucket of, oh, they're doing something different with free agency now. So a little bit of that feeling with DJ Reader, plus his importance to the defense, his position maybe not declining as much as you'd expect others at like age 30. I think there's a lot of reason for him and the Bengals to kind of come back together.
Well, and I'm looking at DJ Reader's numbers right now. So he's a cap hit at 15.5. And, he just turned 29. Like, he's the perfect kind of guy to do like what we just did with Trey.
Yeah.
Bump him out at least a year, give us some cap relief short term, and we can hold on to him. But obviously, we're not going to sign him to probably like a 4-year deal, because if he hits the open market, who knows what'll get paid?
He'll get a 3 or 4 for a lot more money.
Exactly.
I was going to say, I could see him getting at least like 10 or 12 easy from a team. Like I said, we're trying to meet the cap floor. We've got a bunch of young guys. We're transitioning, and he's a great guy to just get in the locker room and show everybody how to be
we were. Yeah, like we were when we brought him in.
Exactly.
His base is 11 right now, so I mean, I think he would command.
Is this is last year on contract too?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's the thing is, when you've made that much, I'm sure as a backup nose tackle or just kind of a rotational defensive line guy, did he dream of that money that he got from the Bengals? He probably, you tell yourself you're worth it, but to actually get that money in your account, have the comfortability in your life, to be a part of this literally from the start of when this organization started to turn around. Does he personally go, this is something special? I have an opportunity to achieve heights that many athletes never get to aspire to, that some athletes look all their career for and can't find the spot. Does he say, hey, I'm comfortable if we get $5 to $7, $8 million a year for 3 years, and he walks away with, hey, we'll give you $23-24 million and guarantee 14-15 million of it? Like, is he feeling pretty good about that? I mean, maybe. So I think that's going to be an interesting way to consider, because I think he is the type of player, being that veteran. We keep looking around like, oh, the Bengals are the premium destination for a veteran who wants to win a ring. Why not look on your own roster, man? Maybe
there you
that's
go.
a reader, maybe it is. So that's something I'll be looking for, man.
Who the hell would we bring in to replace him anyway? Right?
There's not a lot of DJ Reader.
We're gonna call Snacks Harrison, see if he wants to jump back on the line there.
Yeah. Now, go ahead, Dale. You haven't been on in a minute.
I was just going to say we hadn't had Evan on since before the draft, and my man knows his draft talk. So I'm curious to see who was his favorite draft pick or two since the draft, because I haven't got that from you, and you're a big draft guy, and I love it because
you haven't, man, and you're right. If anybody tuned in to our the 4 weeks leading up to the draft time on State of the Jungle, we had a mock draft war room, and we bring in a special guest and had Drew Garrison on and John Sheeran and a lot of good people, a lot of very smart
my
people.
invite got lost in the mail. It's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe fucking next year.
But if you guys watched that at all, then you'd see we picked TJ Turner in the second round and the third round in a couple of different drafts and talked profusely.
That's my guy.
And I love getting that kind of corner. He was the last kind of top tier athlete corner, I think, that was left on the board at that point that you felt comfortable with. Just to sing his praises a little bit, he allowed just 46.5% of the passes thrown into his coverage to be caught in his last year at Michigan, and he forced 14 incompletions in the process, which tied 16th among
I know Joe kicked himself off, but Joe called that one on our live show. So he must have known something then, man. He's got plugs. You got to look out for him. But he produced a forced incompletion rate of 20%, was 80 plus in PFF grades each of his 3 seasons, which, I mean, man, corner, we know it's so up and down, and you can be bad for 3 plays out of 65, and suddenly you're terrible, right? And for him to have that consistency every single year, and then despite his stature, improve as a run defender every year, I think you're seeing a really good trajectory from him. And obviously the measurables are incredible. 4.26 40 was 99th percentile. His 131-inch broad jump was 91st percentile. So explosiveness and long speed. I mean,
are you reading something, or is this from your brain?
No, I do have some notes, man. I got some notes. Don't get me wrong. I do have a couple stats near and dear to my heart that I do have tucked away, but no, I wanted to make sure I'm bringing the smoke for you guys. So between that, man, and I'll tell you what, man, Chuck Sizzle. I love the upside of Yoshivas, and I'm an Alabama guy, okay? Page. So roll MF and Tide for getting my guy Jordan Battle, but I want to talk about Charlie Jones, because this man dropped only 2.7% of his catchable passes that were thrown his way and averaged over 2.7 yards per route run in the season, which was just tops. Crazy. Like every time you run a route, every time you run a route, you're getting 3 yards for your team. That's crazy. And he
Whether
still
you
had,
catch it or not. No.
yeah, right. I mean, even if you're not targeted, basically, is what that
Yes.
means. That's the level of importance of him to this offense. And the reason yards per route run is one of the best wide receiver metrics for production. I know it can be influenced a little bit based on if your team is using a lot of heavy sets like the Titans were for a while, because obviously you're going to get a higher target share, harder to be efficient. But that's kind of the blind spot in this stat. But guys like Julio Jones, AJ Green, Devontae Adams are just top of this list every year. The best receivers in the NFL and college are constantly at the top of the list. And Charlie was that guy. I mean, he had 1,361 yards, led all Power 5 receivers. And despite his stature, again, he had 22 contested catches, which led all FBS receivers. He's 5'11 and 175. So his ability to high point, he's got good breaks on the route. I think he's going to be that next shifty underneath guy that I think we're going to see a couple pop plays. And God bless Tyler Boyd for how he started at his career here to how he responded to adversity and carved himself out a role in this offense and has been the consummate pro. Everything you want from a Bengal receiver. But we also need to realize that many windows in the NFL are about 2 to 3 years.
Hey, write him off out of here with the Super Bowl, baby.
There you
Man,
go.
I would love that. I would love that for him. And then he can go get one big contract from a team and just be set. And I would love that for him. At the same time, he's 29 going into his 30 season. You've got Yoshi Voss. You've got Jones, the obvious replacement there. I think the writing is on the wall for Tyler Boyd, and that's not a commentary to his play. It's just where you have to go when you're paying Joe Burrow and paying T. Higgins and paying Jahmyr Gibbs, right? So I just wanted to talk a little bit about old Chuck Sizzle there, because I think I think it's easier to forget with Yoshi Voss being the size speed combo that everybody can kind of drool over a little bit and looking good at red zone drills. And obviously Chase Brown.
As you can see, we're big fans of Chuck Sizzle here at Bengals and Brews.
Yeah,
Bengals and Brews Selflight.store. Get your Chuck Sizzle shirts. Okay, continue.
But yeah, no, those are my two guys that I really love the draft class. I love the upside pick of Myles Murphy, man. Like, obviously getting a guy at a premium position who has those high upside athletic traits is really good, especially at the end of the first round. When we look at where players from different positions and different draft classes came from, right? Many of the starting tackles, many of the starting corners, edge players come from rounds 1 and 2. That's where you get the guys who have the premium traits, the premium size, everything that you want. Those are the kind of the packages, right? Corner and edge are definitely those positions, two of those premium positions that are of that ilk and follow that line of thinking. And to get Myles Murphy and DJ Turner, I think that illustrates their understanding of not only team need, but how it meets positional value and where the best guys are found. Because when we look at this, we go, well, running backs can be found in rounds 3 and 4 and 5 and be really good. And linebackers too, because tight ends, like, we just seem to not really know when to draft them. Like, it's just kind of a crapshoot. Interior defensive line, another position that kind of just gets pushed down into, like, you could find really good starters in round 3 and 4. So I love the Myles Murphy swing. He's not a finished product. I mean, he has all the upside in the world. The get off is incredible. The 4.53 speed, the 1.59 10 yard, crazy power lifter, has great length. You just want to see more consistency in how he's playing with pad level. And then I'm a little just talking concern. What's the concern about Myles Murphy, right? You're selling me, why wasn't this guy a top 5 pick? Why wasn't he a top 5, 10 pick? Okay. He had a pass rush win rate of 14.3%. And on true pass rushes, so no play action, bubble screens, all that crazy gadgety stuff, right? Guaranteed passing downs of like 3rd and 5 or more. You're talking about a win rate of 17.3%. Just to try to put that in perspective, it was about half the win rate of many of the edges that went in the first and second round. It was very consistent too, that he had that same kind of pass rush win rate freshman year, junior or sophomore year, and junior year. So there's a little bit of question of why didn't that develop, and kind of talking yourself into there's reasons, and we believe we can correct those reasons. The same way that the Bengals running backs coach talked about Chase Brown's fumbling issues and said, yes, we know about that negative, but we have a plan to address it. We think it's a technical issue, and we think we can fix that. I believe that Marion Hobby is probably sitting there saying the same thing to Bengals coaches of going, there's been a lot of kind of turnover in Clemson's defensive room over the last couple of years. Maybe he didn't get developed the right way. Maybe he didn't get coached the right way.
Right.
I can unlock that. I can get that next level out of him. So that's really the big drawback, is just the consistent level of production. You want to see improvement. When you start getting older, you start playing against more 18, 19-year-olds, you want to be dominating, right? Especially if you're a first-round pick. So that's just the main concern. But the size, the frame, the athleticism, everything you want is there. And I think having him in that rotational role between Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard, coming in on rundowns, kicking in on obvious pass downs, I think that's going to give him a lot of opportunity to succeed in what may be the best environment for him to learn.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like I always assumed that it was probably a technique thing with the inconsistency, and because they wouldn't have taken a guy if it was just like, like he's a head case and he's being. And
there was probably some disinterest too, man. There, where you're the top guy, you've been playing with Trevor Lawrence and that Clemson program that you've come to understand is all about winning, and they really struggled that second to last year and his sophomore year, and just coming into even his junior year. You can understand a little bit of disinterest. And
they're still kids.
Right, that's the thing, man. It's so hard to like talk about.
You can't judge a guy's maturity at 20.
Let
me
tell you something,
y'all.
I was
an idiot at 21 years old.
You guys think
years old calling DJ Reader old at 29? Like, I got talk, man.
I sure in the fuck ain't gonna call him old. I got kids old. I got kids older than his ass.
We had a question.
Kids older than you, Evan.
We had a question earlier about surprise cuts, and the one position that I do not think is 100% locked in as far as the bottom of the depth chart is wide receiver. And it all depends on how many we keep. Obviously, we got the big three, and then you have your Trenton Irwin, your Trent Taylor, your Charlie Jones, your Yossi Vosh, and then you have guys like Stanley Morgan. You have Kwame Lassiter's that's back and competing for a role. That's where I'm just like, I don't know who those last two guys are, assuming we only keep 6. What is your thoughts about how many we keep? And a lot of people are assuming Trent Taylor, is going to be fighting for his life for a roster spot. What are your thoughts on the depth chart towards the bottom?
So I think that wide receiver, they keep 7. And the reason is because I think they want Jahmyr T. Higgins, obviously Tyler Boyd, right? Yes. You drafted Yossi Voss, you drafted Charlie Jones, so we're already at 5. I think they were really impressed, as was I, with what Trenton Irwin was able to offer. And I think Darren Simmons has a lot of cachet within this organization. And I think he loves Stanley Morgan, and I do too. And he is a special teams guy, and I think that will be enough to save his roster spot, which, like you said, leaves Trent Taylor kind of the odd man out. Kind of came in, was kind of sharing the punt duties a little bit, and just never really popped. Right. Never really had that Trent Irwin moment that he was kind of like, okay, he's making plays, he's contributing, right? So I think that leaves him the odd man out. I'll tell you what, man, corner is another spot where I'm like, how many are they going to keep, right? Because you've got Cam Taylor-Britt, you've got Cheeto, you've got DJ Turner and Mike Hilton. You're already at 4, right?
Sidney Jones.
I love the Sidney Jones signing. I think it's more about health and consistency with him than anything else. But then you're talking about, DJ Ivy's a 7th round pick that, people are saying, oh, again, we're going to take anything with a grain of salt right now.
Alan George.
But people like him too. And between all of that, I'm like, man, are they going to keep 6 corners? Because you got your backup kind of boundary corner, let's just say, and Sidney Jones, and your backup slot guy in DJ Turner. Where past that are you going to be able to keep? So I think it's going to be interesting to see if they keep them. Jalen Davis is another guy who's been on the practice squad, got a little bit of an extension, very, very minor, like league minimum type extension. So I'm curious about who the odd man out will be there, but nothing crazy. I don't think there's going to be any like truly like shocking cuts to say. Like, I don't think like Lyle Collins, for example, is going to get cut.
Right.
But if you're looking at guys like maybe Jay Tufele, I think the back end of that defensive line rotation is going to be cannibalized because, I mean, you're just so deep at defensive line. Someone's got to be the odd man out. So whether that's Cam Sample, Terrell Basham, Zach Carter, I mean, you're almost 12 deep at the defensive line. So there's going to be a couple guys that come off there. And then also offensive line. I mean, I know that we've looked at that as a glaring issue. Again, last year they were, I think, number 1 in success rate on rushes from week 5 when they made their scheme change on at the end of the season. They were successful as a run team, and they were top 12 in pass block efficiency in that time when they had healthy offensive linemen. Obviously, any team, you take away 3 starting offensive linemen, pardon my French, you're fucked. You are. Like, that's all there is to it, right?
You can't fucking curse on here, Evan.
Right. Watch your fucking mouth there.
It's a fucking family show, guys.
Watch
Keep
your
it
fucking
real.
mouth.
But I'm looking at the offensive line,
letting
man.
me down right now.
You got a swear jar over there? We need to be filling up for you.
Keep swearing on here.
It's a swear bucket.
Yeah, that's right. It's a well.
Yeah, no, you got to have deep aspirations there. But I look at the offensive line, man, and they bring in guys like Cody Ford, and I have to wonder if you think it's surprising long-term projects like Deontay Smith, Hakeem Adeniji. I wonder if they've seen enough from them to say we want to move on to.
God, I hope so.
Well, that's the thing is, do they say, hey, we want to take on a new project? We want to get Ben Brown out here. We want to get Jackson Kirkland some reps. We want to keep Cody Ford, who we went out of our way to sign anyways, which I don't have high hopes for Cody Ford, but that's what I'm saying is they've made new investments, and I think they might be it's been 3 or 4 years, guys. It's time to move on from Deontay Smith and Adeniji. Like we know what they are at this point.
We're not getting rid of Hakeem Adeniji. They won't do it. They won't do it.
Well, that's the thing too, right? Is I think the logic behind it has always been he's got the tackle guard versatility and he can fill a lot of different spots. But when you have Carmen now,
but if you suck at both, it's not good.
I can play 6 different positions. I suck at all of them.
Right, but I can at least be a body and be large there, right? And sometimes that's what you're asking from your backup line.
I'm a large body. How much does he get paid? I'll take.
I was gonna say, I could bulk up another 20 or 30 pounds to try to make a lineman check. Hey, man, I don't know. Arby's is right across the street. I could just start hitting those mott sticks every day.
Get the meats.
We see, man. But yeah, I look at the depth that they have on offensive line, man. When you got Carmen, who has the guard tackle versatility on the left side, you've got Collins, who has the tackle guard versatility as well. You've got Trey Hill for your center, Sharping for your guard, and then you can play around with Ben Brown as your interior project and Jackson Kirkland as well. And then you have Cody Ford as a backup tackle. I will use that in quotes. I think if you would be surprised by that, maybe those are the surprise cuts between Deontay Smith and Hakeem Adeniji, just because they've been names cycled around in the offensive line conversation for so long.
And the inverse of that question, is there any chance Chris Evans can make this 53-man roster?
Dude, I wish that the Chris Evans panned out differently, man. You have to believe that there's some credence to the preparation and the practice and the game planning, because if there was ever a moment that he was going to kind of take over more share of the touches, it was after he had that game-winning touchdown in the Kansas City game. That was the moment, right? That was we have.
And he was healthy scratch the next game, wasn't he?
Right, and that's the thing is. They went, we have a plan for you. We have this way to deploy you here that is going to help us win games. And I just, outside of that game, I don't know if I've ever seen them really say that. Like, it's just, it hasn't felt like the coaching staff has been very intent on manufacturing or creating opportunities for him. And it's really weird when you look at the rest of the team and what they've done to put people. I talk about how great Lou is because he takes cast-offs from other teams and says, how did they misuse you? What are your strengths and how can I deploy you in ways that you can be great?
Right.
And I just never saw them do that for Chris Evans, and it's disappointing, man.
And I think some of it, the theory is that there's stuff that we don't see where he's not following the play.
Some very passionate fans out here in the comments.
Hey, sorry, that's my bastard son.
They're good.
That's why he's got that mouth on him.
Yeah.
Where he's not following the plays as assigned. He's forgetting his assignment. There's been plays in the preseason, where he's getting long runs, getting called back from holding because he's going the wrong direction. Offensive line are getting put out of position. And then Goodberry posted a really good video during OTAs where they're showing the individual running back drills. And he tells, all right, go to this cone and then make your cut, pick your lane and go. And everyone follows it perfectly, even Chase Brown, the rookie. Evans doesn't go to the cone.
Now, see, think about how frustrating that must be for a coaching staff.
And he's just
think about yourself.
You got to go to the cone. You can hear him on the tape. You got to go to the cone.
Right. So you got a new guy who comes in at work, right? He's got, let's say, 5 years experience in the field, but he's new. So you're supposed to be walking him through the process and everything, right? So you're working with him on a project and you're like, okay, hey, take this piece and go put this on there. And then let me know when you're done. And then you come back and it's like upside down and backwards. And you're like,
God, it's so
have
annoying.
the experience. And I told you exactly what you needed to do. So where was the disconnect? And I imagine them dealing with that for 2 or 3 seasons now. They're probably like, we like Travion Williams. He does what we tell him to. We know we like Joe Mixon, and we just drafted Chase Brown with keeping all these corners, with keeping all these defensive linemen, with keeping all these offensive linemen, with keeping all these wide receivers. I think you're going to see other positions like running back, tight end, and maybe linebacker get a little bit thinner.
How many running backs you think they keep?
Man, at this point, like I want to say 3. Like maybe they keep one on the practice squad and they just say, "Hey, we've got Mixon, we've got Williams, and we've got Chase Brown, and we'll use 2 of them until we have to use the 3rd." And
if it's 3, it ain't Chris Evans, right?
Right. I see him being the odd man out, which is crazy because again, when you're going 4 and 5 wide as frequently as anybody in the NFL. And you had injuries to guys like Tyler Boyd or like T. Higgins or like Jamar Chase, and you're getting down to the bottom of where you're putting Michael Thomas in there for lots of snaps, right? You're telling me you can't find a way to just put Chris Evans in the slot there. You're telling me you can't say, you know what? You're not great at the running back things. We're going to ask you to just go out there and be the slot receiver and let you do what comes naturally to you. And it's just, again, it goes back to, I never saw that intention with him, with trying to get him incorporated. And I have to believe that it's part of, like you said, the practice thing, where if we can't trust you to execute and practice, where we're giving you the answers to the test, how can we expect you to execute when you go out there in the game, especially if we're worried about you doing pass protecting things like Samaje, right? You have to be able to sit there and determine whether the pass rush is coming, whether you need to block before you can go do the fun things like release and be a receiver, right? And again, hurts my heart. Wish it worked out differently for him. Wish he could have found his role, but it just didn't work out, unfortunately.
We don't want to get rid of anybody. There's only 53 people that can make the team.
Right.
Yeah, like we said, all these guys are talented. Doesn't mean he sucks. It just means
talented.
Hey,
can you imagine being told you're the top 0.5% at your job in the world?
Right.
Like you'd feel pretty damn good about yourself, right? So it's all in perspective, man. Like I constantly try and remind people, like we are asked to analyze things from like an objective lens, and we have to compare this superhuman to this other superhuman, right? And that's really unfair to do. But at the same time, it's what we're asked to do. And it's never disrespectful to the players. We want all the players to get all the money, everything that we can for them to protect themselves and their family. But at some point, like you said, like Mike Brown said, sometimes the pie runs out and there's places for everybody.
It's like if I'm looking at the Avengers, it's not that Hawkeye sucks. It's just you're comparing him to Captain America and Thor.
And that's unfair.
Sorry, Hawkeye.
He's got a lightning hammer.
You're
you have a bow and arrow.
And you're doing your best.
Come on, man.
Yeah. What is it he says he says we're fighting robots. I have a bow and arrow.
Bow and arrow. None of this.
Some things don't make sense.
Didn't he
Yeah.
1.2 go like, I'm out of arrows? And it was just
Yeah.
like, shit. All right, well, Hawkeye's useless, guys. It's 5 on a million now.
Yeah.
You said something about the linebacker room, you know, maybe getting thinner. There's a couple guys outside of, Wilson and Pratt I really like. I love ADG. I love Marcus Bailey, friend of the show. I love Joe Bacci.
And that's where it gets difficult, right?
yeah,
Isn't it?
I love all those
Marcus
guys.
Bailey and Joe Bacci and ADG has a lot of versatility and potential that I think we really haven't gotten to see yet. And I think Lou probably likes that. And so I look at that and I go, man, if you're keeping extra defensive linemen and you're keeping extra offensive linemen, if you're keeping extra wide receivers and you're keeping extra corners, some position has to suffer, right? And you're already so thin at defensive tackle and you're already so thin at tight end. I start looking at guys like the Keandre Jones, the maybe Joe Bacci, maybe they say, hey, we feel comfortable with Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson, and then Akeem Davis-Gaither and Marcus Bailey, and Joe Bacci's on the way out. Maybe they say, Marcus Bailey, you've had difficulties with injuries throughout your career. You test exceptionally, but it just doesn't work out, and they go with Bacci and ADG. I'm not sure, but I definitely have to try and look at other positions where those cuts are going to be made, right? And I don't think it's safety, which is tough because you have Dax Hill, Nick Scott, Jordan Battle, and Tyson Anderson. So you're already keeping 4 there. So it's like, again, where does that cut come? And if we're already taking away Jay Tufele, like you're getting pretty thin on the interior for what you feel comfortable with. So you got to start taking from other positions, and maybe that is
and Michael Thomas too at safety.
Yes.
Like Michael Thomas and Stanley Morgan, those are like, those guys that are just like those rock solid.
Is special teams enough to keep you on the team, right?
You're a special team specialist.
Right.
They're going to have some tough decisions to be in. What do you say, Pork Chop?
I think Yosifach is going to have to ball out on special teams to get rid of some of those.
Man, I think a lot of this draft class is going to have exceptional use on special teams.
Yeah.
Think about guys like DJ Turner is a gunner. If you're thinking about Battle and his IQ and his vision, and you're talking about, like you said, Yoshivas with his incredible physical tools, his size, his speed. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for this rookie class to contribute on special teams to where, like, hey, you got all these crazy athletes, because that's the thing is a lot of their rookies are crazy athletes for all of their size. So
and they were giving Burner some reps at punt return.
Punt returner, yep.
God bless. Like, that's one of those small positions, like long snapper, that like you never notice until it absolutely sucks, and then you're like, God, I just wish we had that. Like,
right.
I'm an Alabama fan. The cup runneth over at many positions, right? But fucking A, we can't find a fucking kicker that can just kick consistently. You're one of the best teams in the country. You can't figure it out.
That's because you win every game 7 touchdowns to like
You don't need to
I
adjust.
know, it matters, and then you're like, oh, he's gonna kick this 27-yarder just fine, and then it's 5 feet wide of the pylon, and you're like, we got 5 stars holding helmets for 5 stars. I'm sure one of these backup linebackers can come kick this ball better, like. But maybe it's just one of those spots. I don't know, that I would definitely like to see them get more juice at returner, 100%.
Well, if Lord knock on wood, anything happens to Evan, we saw Logan Wilson last year just kicking bombs. I was there that day where he's hitting field goals at training camp. I mean, he was hitting 45.
He's got a leg. I mean, hey, you got to do something when the upper body's a little sore, get a little active rest day in, kick some balls around.
I was like, what is he doing out here?
Maybe he can get the Chad Ochocinco treatment. Maybe they let him come out and kick it.
There you go.
An extra point.
Maybe Arizona. Maybe they're up 3 or 4 touchdowns. They say, hey, Logan, get out there and kick you one.
I guess he has like kicking experience in like high school.
Oh, wow, there you go.
He's a crazy.
I did not know that.
I love a versatile player. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We love a guy who can do anything.
That was one of the guys where I was like really in awe of just like what an incredible athlete this is.
That's the thing is like all these guys were like 2 and 3 sport athletes and state champions, and it's just again like it looks so different when you're sitting next to Pat Mahomes and LeBron and all these crazy freaking otherworldly alien athletes. Like anybody looks normal. Like it just reminds me a little bit of like Tyreek Hill playing like that flag football game against the girls, and he got the catch, and then he's just like weaving through 30 people.
Yeah.
Like, but that's the thing is, we all had that friend playing football, right? That when his legs are turning and he's going full speed, and like his legs and his lower axis like turn, like almost like he starts running at an angle, but his upper body is upright still. And it's like, that's just that next level, like bend and athleticism. And everybody's probably got that friend that they're thinking of in their head right now, that they're like, man, he was just, once he got that shallow cross and got full speed, like he'd throw one foot the other way and it was gone. Like, it's just, shout out Mark. That's you, buddy. Congratulations. Just got married 2-3 weeks ago.
Awesome. Condolences.
I'll be sure to relay them.
Yeah.
No, I got, we appreciate your time. I got one last question for you. And if these guys got anything else, as far as third contracts go, I know you don't see the Bengals do them a whole lot. We just saw with Trey.
Right.
And other than DJ Reader, do you see any other guy on the team getting that mysterious and illustrious third contract from the Bengals?
Right. Oh, that's a tough question, man. Joe Burrow.
Well,
that's the
exactly.
easy answer, right? I'm gonna take that out. Man, it's hard not to look at Sam Hubbard as like a Mr. Cincinnati guy, in the sense that you grew up here, went to Moeller, grew up in the Cincinnati area, always went for the Bengals. You have to wonder if throughout his career, at that point, he's got his family here, he's made good money. If he just wants to stay here with all of his friends, good friends with Joe Burrow and the other guys coming from Ohio State, he's just a lot of local connections. I feel like that's a guy who would take less to stay where he's comfortable, even if maybe it's a rotational end role, right? Behind Miles Murphy at that point.
Right.
I think he's kind of a prime kind of candidate. I wonder about Cheeto, because after his rookie year, he was not a hot commodity. And I think he's played very, very well in Cincinnati, and I think he will continue to do so. He may be hitting free agency going, I'm 28. I've got maybe 1 or 2 good years left as a corner. I made maybe 7 or 8 million a year right now. I could cash out and make 12 to 15 easy, because Stephon Gilmore on his last legs is making 10. So maybe he can go out there and get a 3-year deal worth 27, 28, $30 million, right? Maybe more than that, maybe 32, 34. I don't see the Bengals eager to match that. But if Lou ends up staying by some weird chance, whether people just kind of
It's happened twice.
That's the thing is my co-host brought up Malik Wright. Shout out Malik. Has kind of floated the idea of the Wade Phillips failure out in Denver and everything else kind of cooled off people on defensive coordinators. And also because we've seen so many, it's tough when you have a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback tied to an offensive play caller and then they leave, right? And so putting that as your head coach is a little bit more security of keeping that as where people see defensive coordinators a little more replaceable. So with that added importance on offensive coordinators, with older defensive coordinators and coaches not necessarily succeeding, I think that maybe Lou sticks around like Zimmer did for a little bit longer than you would expect. So. And if that's the case, maybe Cheeto says, hey, I'll stay here for $8 million a year. And then you're rocking with Cheeto, let's say DJ Turner on the outside and Cam Taylor-Britt in the slot, because I think Cam Taylor-Britt's physicality would be amazing in the slot.
Yeah.
I love how he's done on the outside. So I just think about things like that. So I'm going to say Sam Hubbard is my like prime candidate. We talked about like DJ Reader and Cheeto might have to take a pay cut to stay if they really wanted to. But I'll say Sam Hubbard is kind of my prime candidate for that all rare third contract for the Bengals.
Teddy K.
Dude, I would love if Teddy stayed.
We love Teddy K.
Right?
Him and Kappa, man. Like, I can't say enough about. We talked about this a little bit on our State of the Jungle show recently about what makes a good GM, because people brought up draft classes. And I said, well, the Seahawks had that all-time draft class in 2012, right? And what did they do after that? Absolutely nothing. They were taking LJ Collier in the first round just a couple years ago, and we were all laughing, right? The Saints had their crazy all-pro 1 through 4 draft class in 2017.
Yep.
What have they done since? When we look at the macro level of drafting, we find that people generally are not better one way or another than other individuals. And we get that because obviously we have our own personal preferences and biases, right? So when we get the group think in there, the combination mock drafts that Arif Hassan over at The Athletic puts together generally perform about the same, because you get that group think, you kind of weed out that bias, and then we know the draft is a crapshoot anyways, with 50-50 between injuries, landing spot, coaching staff, all this stuff, right? So with that being such a crapshoot, the best way to evaluate those GMs and those front offices is looking at free agency and how their approach is and how their performance is. And I think the approach and performance for the Bengals, especially in the last 3 years, starting with that DJ Reader contract, has been so exceptional, from hitting on guys like Von Bell, Mike Hilton, Trey Hendrickson. You can't say enough about hitting that middle tier of free agency and just knocking it out of the park. Because when you look back at a lot of free agency, the guys who get the big contracts were just kind of the top name. It's not necessarily if they were the top player or that they were really worth that contract.
Right.
That middle tier of free agency there's a lot of value to be had there. And the consistency with which the Bengals have hit on that middle tier for Cheeto, again, talking about these guys who are that middle tier of free agency, Kappa, Karras. You don't need to go pay Joe Tooney $15 million when you can get one of those guys for 6, 7, or 8, right?
Even before that, with like Hilton, Von Bell.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly. And that consistency is so impressive to me, to be able to, like I said before, take these guys and say, I know they're tier 2, tier 3 free agents, but we really feel that due to Coach X or situation Y, that they were misused, that they were not allowed to be the players they could be. They were either asked to do something they're bad at, or they weren't, their strengths weren't emphasized. And the Bengals have done such an immaculate job of fitting each of these individual players into their plan.
Evan, sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead, please.
Why in the hell did we not go after Mike Gesicki? Because he is the epitome of a misused guy. I wanted him so bad. We had a need. I love Irv Smith. I think he's going to do very well. But damn it, I wanted Mike Gesicki.
I'm laughing very hard because my cohort and co-host Malik Wright also really
I remember him talking a lot about it.
And while we were live on the show, the news broke that he signed for $4.5 million.
Oh yeah,
it's like 4.5. Really?
And so now everybody comments on our show. Whenever Malik will say something, we'll be like, how much do you think he makes? Like $4.5 million? How many reasons you got for why the Bengals are going to sign him? Like 4.5 million? Like, so we just bring that number up all the time. But that's a good question. I think that maybe they look at these positions like wide receiver, corner, quarterback, offensive line, mainly the tackles. I think the Bengals have determined there are positions that we are going to pay. And there are positions that we think are less valuable that we are not going to pay. And I think safety is kind of falling into that bucket. I think interior defensive line is kind of falling into that bucket a little bit. And I think that tight end also falls in that bucket when you have the quarterback and the wide receivers you will have, and you say, hey, we just got career years out of CJ Uzomah and Hayden Hurst. So either like we've got the perfect environmental factors for career years from tight ends, or
that's fair.
And I definitely agree that Gesicki was misused and would be a perfect fit, and I think he should have been signed. But
if we would have taken Mayer, then it would have all made sense. Then it would be like, all right, we love this tight end class in the draft, and it was a great class. and we're going to really target someone. And then we didn't take Mayer past Miles Murphy. And then it was like, okay, then later in the draft, there was an opportunity for us to get Zach Kuntz. And I was like, all right, Kuntz.
There was an opportunity.
And
for
it was just like, there was so many different opportunities
time.
where it's just like, why aren't we taking a tight end? Like,
Right.
I like
That
Irv
was-
Smith. I really like the signing, but there's no depth around it. And, you know, it just, you know, it just must be, as far as how we're scheming, we're a shotgun offense. And, you know, we're not going to leverage the tight end as much as a lot of other teams would.
Yeah.
No,
I think you're right 100% on that, because like you said, Kuntz sitting there, even in the 6th and 7th round, I'm like, oh my God. Like, I mean, this.
Take
And
him.
And then they took DJ Ivy, and I'm like, is this guy even going to be able to stick on the roster because of because you just extended Jalen Davis, you signed DJ Turner, like you're already 6 deep at corner. And you got Sidney Jones. How are you going to fit him onto the roster? I'm of the opinion that those 6th and 7th round picks should be used for specialists and for those upside dart throws. I think that would have been the premium, the literal most athletic tight end in combine history. And I understand the production issues, but again, we're talking about a 6th or 7th round pick. I
shot.
Really think
he's a project. And that's what 6th and 7th round picks are for.
I kind of came to the same conclusion that you did. We were doing the draft show with Joe Goodberry and Dave Lapham and Malik and First Star. Shout out to them for renting out the Reds clubhouse for us. But we were all kind of confused by that too, where we were like, we kept talking about who's your best available. Okay, well, between that and need, like, I mean, Kuntz is staring at the board. And of course, Green Bay took 2, I think, tight ends in the first in between rounds, like 2 and 5. So I wasn't super disappointed to miss out on Mayer. And I say that as someone who appreciates the player he is and what he was able to do as the offensive focus at tight end at Notre Dame. I think also we see that tight end is such a crapshoot and we don't know when to draft the good ones.
Yeah.
That because he didn't test like an above average athlete, that's enough to make me go, if he's Jason Witten for the rest of his career, if he could just find the soft spot in the zone and catch the ball and fall down, am I okay with that? Is that what I want out of my first round tight end? Like, yeah, but like we talked about before, those premium positions that you generally only get in those first 2 rounds of tackle, corner, edge,
that makes sense.
I like to see them. So again, I would have been fine with them taking Bear. I would have completely understood the logic and the pick and how he can contribute. Does a great job of using his frame, good ball skills. Kind of comes back to the, oh gosh, who was the Arizona State receiver that everybody loved? Hakeem. N'Keal Harry. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Harry had the same problem where it was like contested catch, amazing. Wow, he's so good. And it's like, but why isn't he separating? And then he got to the NFL. It was like, oh, he can't separate. That's why.
Did I see right that he was transitioning to tight end?
N'Keal Harry?
He's gonna have to put on like 80 pounds.
Well, okay, maybe it was just somebody joking around.
No, maybe he
it.
was though. I mean, hey, you got to try and stick around somehow, right? Darren Waller worked for him, so maybe it would for you. But I agree. Tight end just seems to be one of those positions that they don't seem to value. And hopefully Irv stays healthy, because I think if he could, like, he had a better explosive play rate in his career than Hayden Hurst and CJ Uzomah. I don't know. I definitely would like to have something more sure there at the position, or something to be more hopeful for.
But even if they approach that position kind of the way they did linebacker the past 4 or 5, however many years,
right?
Not necessarily in the 3rd round, but just say every 5th round, take a tight end until you find one that fits the criteria.
Shot.
Yeah. I don't understand why the past 2 years, especially this year, when as deep as the tight end draft class was, they didn't take
this was the
one
year.
shot. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I know they have Drew Sample.
Yeah.
They do have Drew Sample.
No, I agree. If you were looking at this class, if you're looking at the draft class for this year or next year, and you're saying, when should I take? Yes, absolutely. The tight end class this year was beefy. Maybe next year they loop back around and say, hey, it's an easy way to get cheap. We have a younger guy we can kind of rely upon. At the same time, I can see them also just shopping at the bargain bin, and it sucks because I know what tight end can unlock for you, challenging those second level receivers, attacking the seam, especially if there's as many kind of like too high shells as we were looking at. At the same time, I have to believe that Joe Burrow, with what he can do, you're going to be able to kind of go out there. And this is not necessarily a great way to approach the position, is to go into every offseason with tight end as a need and say,
Yeah.
who wants to come to Cincinnati and have a
Right.
clear year? You know, like
who wants to make ink?
That's not sustainable. Like, it's
Yeah,
like I'm not
right,
even looking for us to find like a Travis Kelce. Like, I'm just looking for us to find our
a
just
Dawson
guy,
Knox,
a guy for the
Guy,
next
yeah.
3 years.
Right.
Yes.
Even to Suji Uzama level, just a young guy on that skill level, that doesn't have injury concerns or anything like that.
And let me throw something at you. Maybe, and this is complete just deep conjecture, maybe there's something to the fact that they transitioned their offense so much last year from having those under elements to being such a gun team, because they talked about with play action how they didn't have plays that quite mirrored what they wanted to do on offense. And I think you see a lot more of that this year. Maybe that's tight end as well too, where in this new scheme, what's our approach? What do we want most from the tight end? Because we've changed schemes. What we want from our tight end in the offseason might not be what we want from the tight end when we find our true offensive identity from a season of going through this. So maybe they're sitting there asking themselves, okay, we're at this transition point. Tyler Boyd is probably on his way out. T and Joe and Jahmyr are going to be here long term. What do we envision our offense being? What are the responsibilities of that tight end going to be? Are they going to have to be mainly blocking or just chipping, receiving? What do we want out of that position? I feel like if they have a clearer picture of what they want, they may feel more comfortable either attacking a middle or top tier guy in free agency or saying, you know what? We had a lot of premium positions last year between safety, corner, defensive end in the draft. Let's go tight end and defensive tackle and interior offensive lineman. Let's get fucking crazy this draft. And now that we know what we're looking for and we're looking to get cheaper at those, maybe that's the pivot. So
what kind of tight end do you think that Joe Burrow wants, Evan?
I think he wants one who can run up the seam, who can separate.
Maybe a little chip and a catch the ball.
Right.
Well, and if the draft feels like a lifetime ago, but if I remember correctly, I thought I heard the word that they were in on Dalton Kincaid. That they might have taken him had he been there, but of course the Bills.
Word from Dave Lapham is also that they were doing a lot of work on Sam Laporta, who got early. And what I loved about Sam Laporta is his ability after the catch. He was one of the most elusive tight ends after the catch in PFF charting history. And I see what Detroit's doing there with you've got him, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I see you're trying to attack the middle and just be an after the catch monster.
Yeah, now they just need a quarterback.
Right. Hey, if he can just get the ball into their numbers, let them do the work after the catch. Hey, you're cooking with gas, right?
That's the Andy Dalton special.
Right. So I definitely would have liked to see him in this offense. If you can imagine every one of those Samaje Perine or Hayden Hurst checkdowns that were 4 or 6 yards and they just kind of lean forward for like 1 or 2 more, a missed tackle, running up the sideline, another 7, 8, 10, 12 yards. I mean, that's what you're talking about, and that kind of after the catch guy. So I'd love to see them add a guy like that. It was very surprising to see him go before Michael Mayer. But, again, that just goes back to people willing to take the chance on the athlete upside of tight end versus the kind of like safe tight end in that sense.
Evan, you had to bring up Jahmyr Gibbs. I was so
baby.
I was a wide-eyed optimist that he would fall all the way to 28, and people thought that was going to be such a reach. And I was the conductor of the Gibbs hype train. I wanted him in this offense so badly, and then he went at 12?
12.
Well, fuck. That dream's over.
No,
That was
right.
really
Hey,
sad.
Credit to Detroit. They had their vision and they said,
for
we're going
them.
to do it, and we don't care what anyone else thinks. I mean,
Yep.
Bite the
They said they
kneecap.
wanted to take them at 8.
right.
Yeah.
And I know from people who worked within Detroit that they were, as my acquaintance put it, very unhappy with DeAndre Swift's as injuries, and that stemmed to just kind of like sitting out practices, being like, I have a headache or I don't feel like it, and try and tell your
I'm on my
running backs
period.
coach or like linebackers coach, hey, I have a headache, I don't feel like practicing, after you already haven't been practicing for 4 weeks from your ankle injury or whatever else. And I think there was a lot. I think they were more than ready based on the conversations I had to move on from him, and that was back at the combine. So, I mean, even before the draft, they were posturing to move on from him. So that was interesting.
I was going to say, it sounds like Gibbs is everything and more that they wanted DeAndre Swift to be.
Yeah, he's definitely that scat receiver back. He was that guy who we see so much now with the rule changes and everything else, that the value of the running back position, when we talk about the sequence of events that has to happen, right? First, the play call has to come in. The play call has to be good, right? Both in timing and design. The offensive line has to block. All 5 guys. If they blow a block, you're tackling the backfield, right? So you've got 6 people there that are responsible for being good before you are allowed to be good. Right. One way that a running back really recoups that value is through the receiving game, through creating yards besides what's blocked for them, right? Jahmyr Gibbs does that in spades. As a runner, as a receiver, when you get him in space, he's very slight for a running back, but at the same time, we've seen that work for other guys, and his feel for leverage of a defender, their body weight, their positioning, everything is just it's exceptional. It's Reggie Bush level. It is.
Oh, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Did I steal that out?
This guy is going to be a star. He is going to have a Reggie Bush like start to his career.
Like even Matt Forte, like people forget how good Matt Forte was as a receiver, where like he would just get screens and they just say go to work and like let him work in the open field. And I wish there was more of that going on with Joe Mixon. I mean, obviously that's part of the early part of his career when, as I was told, they had an offensive coordinator who, and I quote, I can't help but laugh, did not believe in throwing the running back the ball. Yes, that is a real thing that an NFL. So I have all the respect. NFL coaches have forgot more about football than I'll ever know, but sometimes you do overthink things. You know, when you type a word sometimes and it just looks weird to you, and then you got to Google it and you're sitting there. Like, am I spelling this right? Like it's a 4-letter word, but I think I'm messing this.
When the red line doesn't, like there's no red line under it, and you're like, that shit doesn't look right. Something's
something's weird. Yeah. So sometimes NFL coaches can overthink it too sometimes, especially with how good of a receiver he was coming out. But that's another a story for another time. But yeah, no, I think Jahmyr Gibbs I think that's a great fit for what the Lions want to do. And I think he's going to have a lot of success there.
Good for him. I hope he does great.
And talking fantasy football, we do have the fantasy football league we have going on. I could see him. He definitely has. I think he's an RB2 for sure.
A lot of touchdowns avoided by Jamal Williams.
Yep. Well, yeah. But I was going to say, I think he has the potential to be an RB1 just because of the pass catching.
While we're talking fantasy football, gosh, I'm gonna forget his name. He used to work with PFF. Does a lot of great work for, I believe, FTN now. I'm trying to pull up his account while I'm wasting time right now, and I'm doing a terrible job of it.
Well, you're pulling that up.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and I love Jahmyr Gibbs for fantasy as well because I'm not the biggest David Montgomery fan. I've not that he's bad or anything. I just have never been super impressed with him. I think he's an above average running back in the NFL, where I think Jahmyr Gibbs has
very Miles Sanders, right?
Jahmyr Gibbs has really, special potential, not just because he's a rookie, but just because of his unique skill set to catch the ball and breakaway. What were you going to say, Evan?
I was just saying, I can't remember the exact stat, but I talking about fantasy football running backs. He did the math, and each passing opportunity or reception opportunity alone, especially in PPR leagues, is worth almost 1.5 to 2 times as much as a carry. So if you got a guy who's getting 5 or 7, 8 carries a game and 3 or 4 targets, that's the value of a guy getting 15, 16, and 17 carries in a game, right? So you're talking about those Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, Jamal Williams, pretty much handoff backs. Right. You get the 15 rushes for 65 yards and maybe the touchdown that week versus you get that higher floor with the PPR guys where you get more of the reception guys. You get a higher floor also because there's just a general higher yield potential of yards on a passing play for a running back than there is running. So just a little fantasy nugget there for y'all to consider while people like to diss on the guys like Kareem Hunt who were behind a Nick Chubb. But I mean, Kareem Hunt outperformed a lot of guys out there who were standard running backs who were getting
the upside 15. Of a guy like that.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Especially if you're playing in any sort of PPR half or full. But full.
That you cannot underestimate the value of not always taking wide receiver early, but taking running back at the right time. Yeah. What that means for you, whether that's a guy falling in your lap, not falling into the trap of, the running back or, the giant run on running backs just happened. I need to panic and take the next best guy, aka, or, a la Billy Price with the Bengals, right? Oh, there goes my guy and the next best one. I have to take him now. So, yeah, I definitely think that's something people need to consider in PPR and have PPR leagues.
And I don't know if this guy's on here just because you said you were a huge Alabama fan. But
hey, Dabo's former Alabama, baby. All right, we don't forget the roots.
But he's saying signed T already, 3-year extension, $70 million, $30 million signing bonus, $50 million guaranteed. Wide receiver contract for.
I was gonna say I already knew that was Rowdy before he said it was.
I knew exactly.
Thank you for the super chat, Rowdy.
Yeah.
No, I think that's if he was willing to come for 3 years, $70 million. I think that would be money. I talked earlier about him being in that kind of DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb tier, right? I always have this talk about when people say top 5 wide receivers. I always say in any order, right? Because I can hear any argument for Tyreek Hill, Stefon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Jamar Chase, like any of those guys, you could put them 1 through 4, and I wouldn't fight you on it, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's that next tier of like Terry McLaurin, AJ Brown, DJ Moore, CeeDee Lamb. I see T in that like 1B tier, right? Yeah. And those guys are generally making about $25 million a year APY, right? Not cap hit. So if he was willing to come for 3 years, 70, I think that's less than those guys overall. So I'd be 100%. So I personally would expect more of like a 3-year or 4-year deal at like 26, 27, because we know how you look at the offensive lineman pay, and sometimes there's guys making like 5 million, and then there's guys making like 5 million, 1,000. And it's very obvious what's happening here. Like,
right.
Then the next guy makes like 5.5 million and a half, and it's like, okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down, right? So I think there might be a little bit of that, but I don't see the evidence at this point, as much as I love T to say you deserve to be paid like Devontae Adams, like Tyreek Hill, to be up in that $28, $30 million stratosphere.
Do you make anything of these cryptic tweets he's been sending this week with like, there's this emoji, he's saying it's tea time. There's the one with Jamar Chase kind of making a face. I'm like, what is this? He's got everyone going crazy. I'm like, he could just be messing with us.
So yeah, no, he might
Nick
be.
did the same thing, right?
No. At the same time, there's people I trust who talk to, people within the organization or talk to players. And two of those people that I trust are Malik Wright and my buddy Zim Hude, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. And Zim is very tight with the players. Malik has some very good sources in the organization. These are two guys I trust, and every word from them from the get-go has been the intention is to retain T.
Sure.
and T's intention is to come back.
Right.
So between all of that, is there something to the tweets? Maybe, like, maybe he's teasing, like, maybe the deal is already pretty much hammered out. Now they're working on, timing of payments and stuff like that. Maybe he's poking fun at that. Maybe he's teasing at that. But based on, like I said, what Malik's told me, what Zim has told me, it seems like every intention is to keep T. Higgins. And I imagine this organization would be very deflated if they let T. Higgins walk. I think that means a lot to them.
The fan base would.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please. No, please.
I was just going to say, I absolutely believe the Bengals want to keep him. I absolutely believe that T wants to stay here. It's more so of, but at what cost? Because everyone's going to have their threshold. And we don't know what T's threshold is, and we don't know what the Bengals threshold is. So that's my only of, like, I don't know if it's going to happen. And obviously you have the reputation of Dave Mulligata as agent. That's negotiates over the market deals historically.
So if he's looking at, like, oh yeah, T deserves that 29 or 30.
Yeah, if he's trying to get 30 mil,
Tyreek is at 30 APY, but it's really like 27, 28. When you get to the funny money stuff. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead. No, please.
The other part of it is, I don't know that we have the urgency to extend T, because we are in a position where he's still on his rookie deal. And if we get to a position where he's in the last year of his deal and we can just franchise him, so it's not like we need to do something now or he's gone. And I don't think the relationship would break down enough that he would hold out or demand a trade or anything like that. Cause it seems like they have a great relationship. That's why I'm pessimistic about a deal getting done. I hope I'm wrong.
It's easy to look at David Mulligata and go,
exactly,
oh, man, it's over, right?
He's like the boogeyman of agents.
You know what? Let me look.
Baba Yaga.
I was curious. Okay, so TJ Watt is CAA. I don't know if that's with Mulligata or not.
Sure.
I was curious because I remember TJ Watt, and this doesn't happen often, right? Usually players will defer to their agents and let them handle the money thing. It's much cleaner that way. We've seen that with the Lamar contract, right? And how things can get bared either way. But TJ Watt is someone who said there's been too much haggling over the number. Like you guys are saying 2 million under, you're saying 2 million over. We're going to meet in the middle. And TJ went around his agent's best wishes and said, I want to be here. This is enough. It's fine.
Right. Yeah.
If David Mulligata is sitting there saying, I want 30, and the Bengals say, we think T is 26, and T goes, you know what? 26 or 28 is enough for me to just sign on the dotted line. I want to be here. I want to play with Joe. I want to play with Jahmyr.
Right.
I think that's a good deal for him. I think we've seen wide receivers chase money for, if you even want to call them, greener pastures, probably browner pastures, for being honest, and suffer because of that, right?
Yep.
And so I think T may be looking at that and saying, you know what? What's the difference between 26 and 28 million for me? I'll take that extra money to keep Joe and keep Jahmyr and stuff. So maybe there's a little bit of that going on, but I do understand your concern of David Mulligata seems to always just like, hey, we're going to get the most we can for you. Which, if you're arguing T. Higgins is a wide receiver one, like I understand, but I'm not putting a lot of water in that bucket for that argument.
So hopefully they're that close, and it's not
right.
A 30 million and a 21 million or something like that, where
it's a lot harder if T's just like, hey, I'll go where the money is, versus like if the Bengals want him back and T is telling his agent, I want to be back. I think there's some middle ground to be had there.
Yeah, I hope so.
I do too. I hope like hell, man. I really do. I think back to what happened with Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu walking and then spending the next 3 to 5 years going, God, wouldn't it be great if we had a receiver outside of AJ who could do anything at all? Like, wouldn't
Marvin Jones especially hurt me when he left. I really wanted Marvin to stay.
And I get that they went for different reasons, where Mohamed said I can be a true number 2 and Marvin said I can be a true number 1, and that, that's how things worked out. But I think they might be looking at that and saying, you know what, we've got something really special with these quarterbacks and these receivers. Like, let's keep this together and figure it out later.
And Marvin Jones, credit to him, he's had a hell of a career. I mean, the fact that he's still in the league, plugging along and being productive.
Didn't he have another 4 touchdown game just out of nowhere, just a year ago?
Every year he has a 4 touchdown game.
Yeah.
And then Mohamed Sanu just throws for one, and you're like, oh, yeah, I've seen that before.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Good times.
What is that now? 9 for 9 on passes? Yeah. Okay.
I would be remiss, since this is about the only time we can have Joe on. Before we get off here, we got to know the falling asleep on the park bench story. You wasn't going to get away from it. Wasn't going to get away from it.
That's why I kept asking questions, so I didn't have to be asked about this. All right.
Let me set it up.
All right,
go ahead. Set it up.
Set
It's a whole goddamn story behind it. It involves more than Joe. Like, everybody left, and the only people left there at the Little Miami Brewery Company was me, Joe, and Strawberry Ice.
Yeah, we were there for the Ted Karras since he had it.
That's just because Strawberry Ice stayed around so Joe could buy him about 15 more fucking shots.
I know. I saw my bill at the end. I was like, damn.
Listen, Evan, if you're ever out with Jeff and he says, hey, you want a drink? Say no.
I was going to say, I got to be.
You want to buy me a drink?
Still, yeah. You want a shotgun a beer? I'm like, oh, man, this is a bad idea.
Listen,
but all right, yeah, why not?
He'll go, hey, Evan, you want a drink? You'll go, yeah. We go, all right, buy us one. So,
he did that to me many times.
Joe's going to Uber back to his hotel because he lives all the way up there in Columbus. So he got a hotel down there. And I said, well, I'll just drive you. So then we go out to my truck. I call it Big Fancy. We go get a Big Fancy. Joe grabs the front. Jeff goes to get in the back, and I got that trash thing hanging off the back of my seat there. He's like, what's this? This got to go. This got to go. And I'm like, so, and then on the way to the hotel, he keeps yelling at us that we're going to get in the pool. Joe doesn't give a fuck because Joe's drunk as fuck too. Both of them are drunk as fuck, man. I'm lucky I made it there without puke. But so when we get there, Joe gets out. We give him the signed jersey. You can see the Ted Karras autographed jersey behind Joe that we're giving away in our fantasy football league. But Joe gets out and he leaves. All right, bye, Joe. See you later. All right. Jeff gets back in the truck and immediately says, I got to piss. We're sitting in front of a hotel. I got to drive all the way back from Delhi, back to Delhi. We're sitting in front of a hotel, Jeff. Go in there and pee. So he goes in and pee. Joe shows back up, and he's standing there, burning one, talking to me, bullshitting. Huh?
I don't remember any of this.
So he's talking to me.
My first time hearing this part.
He's talking to me, smoking a cigarette. I didn't know what the fuck happened. He just popped back up. Apparently, he went and put that stuff in his car and then came back. Mm-hmm. And then Jeff comes out of the bathroom and gets something about his wife calling, and he gets in the truck and we get ready, say bye to Joe, and we leave. Next day, we find out. Fucking go ahead, Joe. That's your setup.
Yeah, so I don't remember any of that part. I do remember getting dropped off.
I was the sober one. Believe that shit.
I think I sat down.
Right?
I sat down on the bench right outside the hotel, and I think I went to go smoke a cigarette or something. I remember scrolling on my phone, and I remember feeling real tired. And then the next thing I remember, I wake up. I'm laying down on this bench now, and there's a police officer over top of me.
Oh, no.
And I'm just like, fuck, did I drive? And I look around. I'm like, no car by me. Well, that's good.
That's good.
And I'm like, hello, officer. He's like, are you okay? And I was just like, yep, just got a little sleepy. He's like, what are you doing? And I, kind of explained. I said, oh, well, we were at this, event. I was like, are you a Bengals fan? And he's like, yes. I was like, oh, we were Ted Karras doing da-da-da-da-da, I'm trying to be friendly with him. And he's like, well, we were about to call the paramedics because we had a hard time waking you and we weren't sure if you were breathing. And I'm just like, yeah, I overserved myself. I'm really sorry.
That said who day. I mean, come on, man. Wouldn't you just get blacked out? Yeah.
I was like, I overserved myself. And, I remember all of this. And then he's like, okay, well, gets my ID and everything like this. He's like, you are a guest here, right? I said, yes. And I show them my room key and they're like, okay, well, we're going to talk to the hotel management staff who called us and see if you're allowed to stay here still.
What time was it?
Oh gosh.
No drunk people in our hotel.
Did you drop me off?
Midnight?
Yeah, I was going to say, it was probably like 12:30.
Oh, okay.
It was shortly thereafter. And then, he's just kind of talking to me, and he's just like, you look really upset. I said, because, I was waiting for the other officer to talk to this hotel staff. And I was just like, I'm not upset. I'm just a little embarrassed. You guys have better stuff to do than deal with my drunk ass. Really sorry. And the other cop came back, and then she's like, all right. Yeah, they said it's fine, but you have to go directly to your room. Do not pass go.
Joe got
go
grounded.
to sleep.
Joe got grounded on his vacation.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, thank you, officer. Sorry. So,
He's a
that
bad
was
boy. Your
embarrassing.
wife wanted to marry a rebel.
Man. Yeah, I told my wife that story, and she was just cracking up. I'm like, I don't go out and drink like that. I don't go out to bars very often anymore. I'm 39. I got 2 young kids. Like, I don't do that stuff anymore.
It's good though. Sometimes you need that.
It was fun.
I'll let loose every once in a while.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a story.
So yeah, the lesson you learned from that, Evan, is don't fucking come out with us. It might end up like The Hangover.
Yeah, exactly.
Possible.
We don't need that. My girlfriend would not be happy.
Yeah, all of the co-hosts of Bengals and Brews, I think, have a story like that.
Yeah, can't did again.
Not me.
Not yet.
Yeah,
I don't have any stories like that.
For Loco.
Yeah. Hey, on the 3:30 show, we were talking about Lou Anarumo's defense, and we are talking about how fucking crazy it is, and I called him For Luco.
Oh, there you go.
For
That's
Luco, because that defense
like
is crazy. It'll get you fucked up. For Luco.
All right, Evan. Well, we appreciate you giving us more than enough time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Evan. This has been a blast.
Man. Talking Bengals with you guys is always a good time. So I appreciate you having me on.
It could be a 24-hour show, man.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I was gonna say, I think everybody's significant others might be a little upset with that one.
Not mine. She's just chilling on the couch. She's good.
I think an hour ago when my wife came on here and said, "Hey guys," I think that was her cue.
That was probably the sign of like, you're done.
Hey guys, hurry it up! Yeah, she starts playing the Grammy music.
Once you get out of that 20 years married, man, they just chill on the couch and don't give a fuck what you do.
Like, he hasn't been bothering me for a while.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah.
Right. If I go up there now, she's like, "What's going on with you? Isn't your show still going on? Don't you want to go downstairs?" I'm like,
what are you doing here?
Evan, anything you want to plug or tell people how to find you before we go?
We have a wonderful Bengals show, State of the Jungle, on Wednesday, 7 p.m. You can check Malik Wright's Twitter, who many of you probably follow. You can check my Twitter at @eMcPhill, and we will always be tweeting out links and live show links. We love to interact with you guys, kind of have viewers ask questions and interact with you guys through the show. We'll always be tweeting out and kind of sharing content there too as well. So would love to have you guys on there, and appreciate all y'all watching and tuning in for Bengals and Brews.
Santori loves your face.
Hey, Santori, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
He made a chicken parm. If you want some, just let him know.
Oh man, yeah, no, put that in the little to-go box.
There
and,
you go.
Drop me the Addy, drop me the pin. We'll pick it up.
Yeah. Hey, that First Star, man, they're doing some big shit over there, aren't
They
they?
are, man.
God,
hey, they
dang.
brought Joe on. They brought the heavy hitters, man.
They
So
got
Joe,
deep ass pockets over there, man. They're cornering the market.
You got Malik, you got Dave Lapham, you got Joe Goodberry. I mean, I'm gonna hide in the closet over there and let them do their thing. Like, I don't need to be there.
Evan, pitch it to him. Bring on Bengals and Brews. Brought to you by First Star Logistics.
Hey, little joint show. Why not?
It's the after.
We probably swear too much.
We'll make it after 10 p.m.
I got to protect myself sometimes, man. I curse like a sailor at work. I gotta switch the knobs sometimes.
You see, you bring us on and you give a couple fucks on there, and then they go, Evan, God dang it, we told you about that curse. You'd be like, what about these fuckers over in Bengals?
Yeah, no, I can look better by comparison, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
that's what we're here for, to make everyone else look better.
Everyone else is Boy Scouts compared to us. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks again, Evan, for all your time. Hoo day, everybody.
Hoo day.
Hoo day.
Hoo day, baby. Let's go. It's time. Cincinnati, we gon' rise and up. In the jungle, we united up. Orange and black and white, whole day when we fight, live and die in these stripes. Now who got 'em, who rocking on? Now who wanna move close enough? Now who wanna move out on? If you got stripes, then you let the city know you rock 'em. Yeah, we got 'em.